Dwarfs and Khorne here, and in today's video I'll share with you why I dislike recruiting certain units for the Empire, the Dwarfs and Khorne. The primary reason behind these dislikes are the poor performance of these units, the inconvenience of recruiting them, and their impact on battle outcome. I'm not saying I never recruit these units, as there are times when you have no other option or simply want to try them out. However, most of the time I make an effort to avoid recruiting them entirely. Start off with the Empire, and right off the bat, swordsmen, greatswords, cavalry, mortars, cannons, war wagons, steam tanks and luminarchs of Hysh. So why swordsmen, halberds and greatswords? Well, simply because they perform fairly poorly when it comes to dishing out damage in melee, which is their primary role. They also take a lot of damage. In comparison, spearmen are more durable and have less balance of power values than greatswords. This means they can hold the line for longer without significantly affecting the balance of power, allowing your ranged units to secure victory more easily. Cavalry is rather lackluster, primarily due to the extended recruit times, the need for multiple buildings, and the increase to micromanagement demands that often lead to errors and unnecessarily taking damage. The same issue applies to ranged cavalry units, with the exception of outriders with grenade launchers. However, their effectiveness greatly depends on the composition of the opposing army, as they can be easily overwhelmed by predominantly ranged enemy forces before they even get a single volley off. Mortars and cannons prove to be rather unreliable in dealing damage, and they come with a significant balance of power bonus. This means that if they underperform, it can prolong the time it takes to achieve victory. War wagons, being low damage skirmish units that demand constant micromanagement to excel, makes them not worth the effort or cost in recruiting. Steam tanks, in my opinion, are a subpar unit due to their lengthy recruit time, high unit upkeep, and lackluster battlefield performance. Essentially, they function as a single cannon model with minimal melee potential. Relatively low health, their sole advantage is the fact you can heal them with the Jade Wizard, but aside from that, I would much rather have a single cannon unit. Lastly, luminarchs of Hysh often feel unnecessary to recruit. These are tier 5 units that have a lengthy recruit time. While they can boast impressive damage output, particularly after recent buffs, there are generally more efficient options available early on. When it comes to the dwarves, there are very few units I find unappealing. These include Iron Drake's Trollhammer torpedoes, slayers, cannons, bolt throwers, gyro bombers and gyrocopters. My reservations stem mainly from these units seeming unnecessary, considering there are better alternatives that perform their role more effectively. For example, Trollhammer torpedoes become somewhat obsolete when you have organ guns and thunderers that efficiently eliminate single entity monsters and are more convenient. Slayers are a high balance of power unit that is meant to die, so yes, sure, they can dish out a lot of damage, but the fact they die so quickly means they make the battle take longer to win, which in turn makes it so you take even more damage than was necessary. Cannons face similar issues to those in the Empire. Bolt throwers are a completely useless unit, and the gyro bombers and gyrocopters often feel like units with little practical use, and they're there just for some flavor. They can deal decent damage but are very vulnerable to flying units and basic archers due to their low combat stats and limited range. Moreover, the community's calls for units like thunder barges and golems don't sit well with me. These additions are likely to be more about adding flavor than altering the dwarves' playstyle significantly. Personally, I'd prefer to see the dwarves evolve more towards the Chaos Dwarves, with a more diverse roster of units that perform amazingly well and can be boosted to ridiculous levels. If you're enjoying the video thus far, please consider subscribing for future content. Now back to the video. As for Khorne units, I have strong aversions to recruiting Skull Cannons, Blood Shrines, Bloodthirsters, Chaos Shrines, and Furies. Skull Cannons and Blood Shrines are nearly identical units that I dislike due to their animations and low melee defense. What often occurs is that they end up clumsily thrusting themselves into the midst of enemy units. If you don't swiftly maneuver them out, they often die rather quickly. Bloodthirsters can be a questionable choice, particularly when facing armies with a lot of ranged units and you have no way of healing them. They simply end up losing more balance of power than they can recover. Furthermore, they require several turns to recruit, which can be quite frustrating, especially for a faction that incurs penalties for inactivity. Furies, in my opinion, are relatively ineffective, which is why I tend to avoid them entirely. Chaos War Shrines, on the other hand, strike me as a redundant unit. Why would you want to recruit a Chaos War Shrine? They attract enemy missile units due to their conspicuous size, and in contrast you can have occultists gain access to it simply by leveling up, and you can equip cultists with items making them more resilient. Additionally, the buffs they provide seem somewhat unnecessary to your faction. I believe it would be a much more compelling unit if its effects were extended across the entire map. Well, these are all the units I hate recruiting for the Empire, Dwarfs and Khorne. Do you have any units you don't like to recruit? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and until next time.